Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Board Game Captain.
I'm Alex.
And today we're going to be reviewing the expansion to Sails of Glory that allows you to play the HMS Hibernia as well as the HMS Royal Gorge. Now, there is the HMS Hibernia, and there is the HMS Royal Gorge. Now, the expansion set comes with your card that is two-sided that you can put on your dashboard to show that that is your ship. It also, of course, comes with the actual ship model and the two-sided card that goes in the base. That is the names of both of the ships that this may represent. It's a very nice-looking model. It comes with a H maneuver deck, which is one of the maneuver decks for first-rate ships of the line. First-rate ships of the line are far less maneuverable than the smaller ships. If you've only been playing with the ships that come in the starter set, first-rate ships of the line are slower, less maneuverable, and do a lot more damage, and can take a lot more damage. Now, and then the final thing it comes with is, of course, the damage track that you put on your dashboard. So now let's discuss some of the stats here. So we've got a burden of 6.
It's a big ship.
Which burden of 6 is pretty standard for the first rates.
Yeah.
And we have a maneuverability or veer, I should say, of 4 on both of the ships. Now, this is a little bit different. Now, we've mainly been playing with the larger ships, mainly been playing Britain versus Spain, and Spain usually has a maneuverability of 3 on its first rate. So this is fairly good in its maneuverability.
Yes, there seems to be a theme established throughout the expansions. The British tend to be
more maneuverable,
slightly less armored. Armed.
Armed, yeah. Their cannons aren't quite as powerful.
The Spanish seem to be
lots of guns.
Ridiculous with their amount of firepower, but are the least maneuverable. We haven't played with the Americans.
No, the Americans don't go up to first rate.
They don't go up to first rate.
I'm
saying throughout all of the classes, it seems like
yes, we've played with some French, but we haven't played the French first rates yet. We've played with British and Spanish in most sizes, and we haven't tried out the American fleet yet. Now, that is true.
Yeah.
Now, this expansion comes with the ability to have this ship run as the HMS Hibernia or as the HMS Royal Gorge. And I'm here to tell you that the two are very, very different. Now, the HMS Hibernia is the second most powerful ship in the game next to the Spanish ship, the Santa Ana.
Santa Ana, yes.
Yes. Now, the HMS Hibernia actually has two boxes on its damage track where it can deal out 8 damage hits in a broadside. And in both of those boxes, it can deal out 7 damage hits in the rear arc, which now, that is something that you cannot overstate the value of, because when you're getting past someone, you can't get them in a full broadside. Usually the rear is much less. It's usually like a 6 when you're doing 8. But that 7 is brutal. There are so many times where you think you've moved past me, and I'm like, oh no, I still get 7 damage hits on you.
The 7 rear shot is better than most
third rates
broadside.
Yeah.
In fact,
the French third rates get 7s on the broadside, and some of the Spanish ones.
But that's impressive, because you are just as powerful passing someone as you are broadsiding them.
Now, it's incredibly powerful with its cannons. A bit less so. It gets up to 4 chit pulls for the musketry, which, I mean, a lot of third rates in both France and Spain get 4 with the musketry. So the British don't usually have as good with their musket fire.
Right.
That's normal. Now, on the other hand, the other one is a much, and we'll get into the point cost in a minute, but the much cheaper version is the HMS Royal Gorge. So, like I said, the veer and the burden, that's all the same. The musketry is still pretty comparable, but the cannon fire is much weaker. You only get up to 7 chit pulls on the broadside with the Royal Gorge. That is much inferior to the Hibernia. And that rear arc is only a 5. Now, why would you take this over the other? Really just comes down to points. So where are we at with the points on these two?
So your Hibernia, which, like you said, is the second most powerful ship in the expansion so far, is at 212 points.
And that is very expensive.
Right.
Now, the much weaker Royal Gorge, though.
181. So that is an enormous spread. I mean, 30 plus points, 31 point spread. You're talking about, a massive difference. Yeah. And if you're building a 400 point fleet,
it's hard to fit the 212 unless your other guy is much cheaper.
Right, and you can't find another third rate, at least of what we have, that's cheap enough to do it.
Well, no, a first rate, you mean?
I'm sorry, first rate.
No, but that one would. If you bought two of this expansion, you could run one as the Royal Gorge, one as the Hibernia, and that would be a 400-point fleet.
And that's therein is the rub. The only other variant that you could run with the Hibernia as first rate.
The Britannia. The Britannia is
okay.
187. It just makes it.
Right.
That's actually the most perfect marriage. If you're doing a 400-point fleet with two first-rate ships of the line and you want to run the Hibernia, the perfect marriage for that is the Britannia because it's 187. So they just squeak in. It's like 399, I think. But yeah, no, it can be hard with how expensive that is. Whereas the other one can be, if you're spending a lot of points on your other ship, depending on, let's say you're only running 300 points and you're trying to run one of the more expensive third-rate ships of the line, and you want a cheaper first rate, that 181 is a very cheap first rate. Yeah. Even though it's significantly inferior to the Hibernia, it makes this expansion superior because of the variety. The two very different ships that this ship can represent is fantastic.
It is both the most powerful and the least powerful third-rate ship. First-rate ship. I keep saying first-rate ship in the line. First rate in the British fleet. I think.
Is that the cheapest? Is the 181 the cheapest of the first rates? It might be.
First rate. I think so. Certainly, it's the cheapest of the first rates that we have.
Most of them are usually in the 190s to 200 kind of area, and there's a few that go above 200, like the Hibernia does. Right. But in regards to that, the Hibernia is maneuverable for a first rate.
Yes.
It's got incredible damage output with the 8s and then the 7s in the rear, even though it doesn't quite do as much damage as the Santa Ana. I love these rear arcs at the 7s. It makes it so versatile in what arcs are threatening, because you don't want to be in the rear arc either. It's still really dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
The front arcs are a bit weaker. They start at 5s. That's not quite as good, but the full broadside and the rear arc are absolutely deadly in the Hibernia. And the Royal Gorge, on the other hand, it goes up to a 7. It's got 5s in the rear arc. This is much weaker, but this is still can take as much damage.
Right.
So you get a lot of points off. It's a lot cheaper. It can still deal up to 7 chip pulls, and it can soak up just as much damage for that bargain basement price.
Right. And what's the first thing we all look for when we're shopping? The price.
The price.
So this thing is a bargain.
It really is.
A cheap.
It really is.
First rate that is. I mean, it'll go toe to toe with other ones and absorb as much damage and still give you a first rate ship.
All right, so I'm going to rate this one first.
Again, I've never played with it, only against it.
Yeah, you're going to be rating it based on how afraid you are to face it.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, based on... Okay, so first off, I have not used the Royal Gorge much because I haven't needed to. We usually actually have a pair of 4 ships that we like to use that we've been playing against each other and having a very... odd point value, so I usually match up my Hibernia with the Santa Ana. They're roughly equivalent. Santa Ana's a little better, but then my secondary ship that I use is a little better than yours. It kind of evens out. Right. But for the points, this ship is amazing, and I think since I started using the Hibernia, I don't think I've ever lost a game where the Hibernia was on the sea.
That is probably true. I know for a fact I've never sunk the thing.
It's brutal. It's really good.
It is a massively powerful ship.
It is. So I'm going to give, as an expansion, 1, because of the variety between the Royal Gorge and the Hibernia and how great that is when you're trying to really list build, and if you need to cut points, how amazing the Royal Gorge can be at cutting points, whereas if you're trying to make your most expensive ship the most powerful ship on the sea, how amazing the Hibernia is at that, and also just how useful the Hibernia is and how maneuverable it is with the level of damage output. I mean, those 212 points would seem expensive until you play with it. And then you're like, okay, I know where every point went because, oh my God, this ship is great.
Right.
I'm going to give it 10 stars.
I would agree. It's the best ship in the game. But the best expansion that we have so far, that I've played with or against so far.
Would you rank it higher than the Santa Ana?
I think I would, yeah, absolutely. Just because it's the maneuverability. There's a reason you keep beating me with this ship.
It's true.
Because of the maneuverability.
It's so good.
It is like the barest minimal amount you can measure less powerful.
I would like to...
But it's more maneuverable than the Santa Ana.
I would like to swap fleets and try out the Santa Ana. I
See
wonder.
how we do, yeah.
I wonder how. I know it's less maneuverable than the Hibernia, but I would like to see if I were controlling it, if I could make it work. I know it's tough because the big problem with the lower maneuverability is it's hard to turn hard to one side and then back to the other.
Swing the other way.
Which at the 4 veer, you've got just enough veer to do a hard turn to one side and then back the other way.
Right.
So it's pretty good.
It's good, yeah.
Now, there you have it. That is 10 stars for me, 10 stars from Alex. If you're looking to try to get the most powerful first-rate ship of the line for the British fleet, you need to buy the HMS Hibernia, because there is no ship more powerful than the HMS Hibernia in the entire British fleet, and some would say the game.
Yes.
But let us know in the comments down below. Have you played with the Hibernia or the Royal Gorge? How did you like it? What is your favorite ship in Sails of Glory? And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, also just put them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this review and you would like to see us do more like it, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.